So right now, the US economy, if you take the private sector debts and the public debts, are about 220% of GDP. GDP grows at about 1.75% a year, and they know it's there. So if interest rates, let's assume just for easy maths, say the economy grows at 2% a year. If interest rates grow at 2%, well, the private sector alone, because GDP is all the activity in the economy that pays the interest. So if GDP is at 2% and interest rates are at 2%, then the private sector eats 100% of GDP growth. But the government also needs to fund itself at 2%. And that would take away from GDP. That's what debt does. So what it happens is, and I've worked this out mathematically, is that basically the Fed monetizes anything in excess of GDP growth. Okay, fine. So as GDP has grown and debt has grown, that difference was about $9 trillion, which is, lo and behold, roughly what the balance sheet was. But when you take out the pandemic payments, you can see that actually what is happening is the Federal Reserve are issuing new debt to pay the interest on the old debt and then putting it on the balance sheet. And it happens 3.5 years later. And there's some beautiful charts I discovered, I built myself with my colleague Julian Bittel, that show that 3.5 years later, the Federal Reserve monetized the interest payments. So why is that? Well, that's to do with the whole world resetting rates at zero in 2009. And we're seeing that political process playing out with Liz Warren, who's going after, as are others, going after Jay Powell, saying, so what you want to do is get inflation down. We get it, but you want to get people out of jobs. So everybody starts at zero. Everybody refied then. And we've got, most people have some long-term debt, and at least 60% of all debt is in this 2 to 5 year sector, which is 3.5 years magically. And that every 3.5 years is the peak of the business cycle. It's also the Bitcoin halving cycle. They're all correlated to the same thing, which is this debt cycle. And so when you get later, when you need to start paying the interest, the Federal Reserve have to get interest rates down, because if not, you keep compounding negative GDP.